The 19th century presented us with a peculiar problem that historians have never adequately explained. Extensive underground tunnel networks stretching for miles beneath major cities were constructed during an era when artificial lighting consisted of candles, oil lamps, and at best, primitive gas fixtures. We are told these were mining operations, sewer systems, or transportation projects. Yet the sheer scale, precision, and engineering sophistication of these subterranean complexes defies the technological limitations of the time. Walk through the Paris catacombs, descend into the Edinburgh vaults, explore the tunnels beneath Liverpool or the vast network under Odessa, and you encounter the same architectural impossibility. Perfectly carved chambers extending hundreds of feet below ground, ventilation systems that somehow functioned without electric fans, and engineering precision that supposedly emerged from candlelit darkness. The official narrative insists that these were constructed by workers wielding pickaxes and chisels in suffocating blackness, yet the execution speaks to capabilities far beyond what we attribute to that era. Consider the practicalities that historians conveniently ignore. A worker underground in 1850, surrounded by solid stone, possessed only flame-based illumination. Each candle or oil lamp consumed precious oxygen in an already oxygen-depleted environment. The deeper the excavation, the more severe the ventilation crisis became. Yet these tunnel systems penetrated hundreds of feet into the earth, with some chambers reaching depths where modern engineers acknowledge that without mechanical ventilation, human survival becomes measured in minutes, not hours. How did thousands of workers excavate millions of cubic feet of rock in such conditions? The standard explanation suggests elaborate shaft systems and natural air circulation. But the mathematics of airflow and human respiration tells a different story. These weren't shallow cellars or modest mining shafts. These were architectural megaprojects undertaken in what we're told was technological infancy. The tunnels beneath Odessa serve as a particularly striking example, stretching for an estimated 1,500 miles beneath the Ukrainian city and surrounding region. These catacombs form one of the largest underground labyrinths on Earth. Official history claims they originated from limestone mining operations beginning in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, with workers extracting building stone to construct the city above. But examine the scope of what supposedly occurred. Peasants and workers, using hand tools and operating by candlelight, carved out a subterranean empire larger than the entire tunnel network of the London Underground, which was constructed with steam power, electric lighting, and industrial-age engineering. The Odessa catacombs aren't crude caves or simple mine shafts. They feature carefully planned intersections, chambers of consistent height and width, and architectural decisions suggesting systematic planning rather than haphazard extraction. Who coordinated this vast underground project? What maps guided workers through miles of darkness? How did they avoid catastrophic collapses or getting hopelessly lost in their own creation? Look at the engineering precision displayed in these supposedly primitive operations. The Edinburgh vaults beneath South Bridge, constructed in the late 1700s, demonstrate stone masonry and arch construction that modern engineers acknowledge as sophisticated. These weren't rough caverns, but carefully designed spaces with load-bearing architecture supporting the massive bridge and buildings above. Workers supposedly accomplished this while standing in pools of water, breathing smoke-filled air, and working by flickering flame. The structural calculations required to ensure these underground chambers wouldn't collapse under the weight of an entire city district demanded engineering knowledge that historians attribute to a pre-industrial society. Yet there stand the vaults, their stone arches perfectly formed, their weight distribution flawlessly executed, bearing loads for over 2 centuries. Either the workers of that era possessed engineering capabilities we've systematically underestimated, or something else entirely explains these structures. The Paris catacombs present another dimension to this mystery. Beginning in 1786, Workers supposedly transferred the remains of 6 million people from Parisian cemeteries into former limestone quarries beneath the city, arranging bones in decorative patterns along walls stretching for nearly 200 miles. The official story describes this as a public health initiative, a solution to overflowing graveyards, contaminating wells, and creating disease. But consider the logistics. Millions of skeletal remains transported underground, then methodically arranged in artistic formations, all accomplished by workers operating in cramped tunnels with only flame-based lighting. The bone arrangements themselves display aesthetic sensibility and planning. Skulls form precise patterns, long bones create geometric designs, and entire chambers serve as underground ossuaries with intentional artistic composition. This wasn't merely dumping remains into convenient spaces. This was deliberate architectural creation happening hundreds of feet below street level, in near total darkness. Who designed these patterns? How did workers maintain artistic consistency across miles of tunnel without adequate lighting to see their own work? The ventilation problem becomes even more acute when we consider the chemical processes involved in many of these excavations. Mining operations, whether for stone, coal, or precious metals, release dust, gases, and particles into the air. Blasting with explosives, common in 19th century tunneling, produced enormous quantities of smoke and toxic gases. Limestone dust, ubiquitous in many of these tunnel systems, causes severe respiratory problems even with modern protective equipment. Workers supposedly endured these conditions, while their only light sources actively consumed the remaining breathable air. The candles and oil lamps themselves produced carbon monoxide and depleted oxygen levels. Yet historical records describe decades-long excavation projects with thousands of workers laboring underground daily. Either these workers possessed superhuman respiratory systems, or the historical timeline we've been given doesn't align with physical reality. Transport of excavated material presents another unsolved problem. A single cubic yard of limestone weighs approximately 2 tons. The Odessa catacombs alone supposedly yielded millions of cubic yards of stone, meaning hundreds of millions of tons of material were somehow extracted from deep underground and brought to the surface using pre-industrial technology. Historians suggest simple pulley systems, human chains passing baskets of rock, and primitive elevators. But the mathematics of such operations reveals the impossibility. A worker can carry perhaps 50 pounds of rock at a time. To extract even 1 million tons of stone using this method would require billions of individual trips up and down access shafts. The timeline doesn't support this explanation. Either these projects took thousands of years to complete, or the technology employed was far more sophisticated than official history acknowledges. Similar tunnel networks appear in cities across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, all supposedly constructed during the same narrow window of pre-electric history. Liverpool's Williamson Tunnels, excavated in the early 1800s by tobacco merchant Joseph Williamson, cover several acres beneath the Edge Hill district. Williamson employed hundreds of workers to create this underground labyrinth, allegedly as a philanthropic project to provide employment during economic hardship. But the tunnels display architectural sophistication, suggesting purposes beyond charity work. Arched chambers of precise dimensions, interconnected passages forming complex networks, and structural engineering ensuring stability for 2 centuries. Why would a tobacco merchant finance such an elaborate underground construction project? What was the true purpose of these spaces? The official explanation satisfies no one who actually examines the physical evidence. In Turkey, the Derinkuyu underground city extends 11 stories beneath the Cappadocia region, capable of housing 20,000 people. Archaeologists date it to the 7th or 8th century BCE. yet acknowledge they cannot explain how such a massive excavation occurred with Bronze Age or early Iron Age technology. The complex includes ventilation shafts reaching 200 feet deep, water wells, food storage chambers, and even underground chapels. Somehow, ancient workers carved this city from solid volcanic rock, using tools we can barely imagine accomplishing such precision work. The same mystery repeats across the region, with dozens of similar underground cities discovered, all demonstrating engineering capabilities that shouldn't exist in that historical period. Either our understanding of ancient technology is fundamentally flawed, or these structures weren't created during the time frame we've assigned them. If you enjoy historical stories about the hidden mysteries of the past, please like this video and leave a comment with 1. If you don't, write 0. This helps us understand how valuable these narratives are to you. The technological paradox deepens when we examine the tools supposedly used for these excavations. 19th century mining equipment consisted primarily of picks, hammers, chisels, and black powder explosives. These are the implements historians claim created tunnel networks stretching thousands of miles beneath cities worldwide. Yet visit these sites and observe the precision of the work. Walls display consistent smoothness. Corners meet at exact angles, ceiling heights remain uniform across vast distances, and structural integrity has endured for centuries. Modern tunneling with electric-powered boring machines, laser guidance, and computer-assisted engineering struggles to achieve such consistency. How did workers with hand tools and gunpowder surpass modern capabilities? The timing of these projects also reveals disturbing patterns. Most major urban tunnel networks supposedly began construction during remarkably similar periods, late 18th and early 19th centuries. This coincides with major political upheavals, wars, and social restructuring across Europe and America. The French Revolution, Napoleonic Wars, various independence movements, and industrial transformation all occurred simultaneously with this explosion of underground construction. Governments supposedly channeled resources into massive subterranean projects while fighting continental wars and dealing with revolutionary chaos. The logistics seem impossible. Either these tunnel systems were already substantially complete when modern cities were built over them, or were missing significant chapters of technological history. Documentation from the period raises more questions than answers. Construction records for many of these tunnel networks remain mysteriously incomplete or entirely absent. The Odessa catacombs, despite supposedly involving thousands of workers over decades, lack comprehensive maps or construction logs. The Paris catacombs have better documentation. But even there, discrepancies appear between official records and physical evidence. Chambers exist that aren't on maps. Tunnels extend beyond documented boundaries, and architectural features appear that don't match described construction methods. It's as if someone went to considerable effort to obscure the true origin and purpose of these underground spaces. The architectural consistency across geographically dispersed tunnel systems suggests coordination or shared knowledge that official history doesn't account for. Whether examining vaults beneath Edinburgh, catacombs beneath Paris, tunnels beneath Liverpool, or labyrinths beneath Odessa, similar engineering principles appear. Arched ceilings for load distribution, ventilation shaft placement, structural support techniques, and even aesthetic choices show remarkable similarity. These weren't independent local projects developed in isolation. Either information spread rapidly between underground construction projects across different nations and cultures, or these systems share a common origin we haven't acknowledged. Consider also what these tunnel networks connect. Many link significant buildings, churches, government structures, and private estates. The patterns suggest intentional design serving purposes beyond mining, sewage, or transportation. secret passages between important locations, hidden routes allowing movement beneath cities unseen, spaces designed for concealment or protection. During various historical periods, these tunnels served as smuggling routes, refugee hideaways, military installations, and storage for valuable goods. But were these secondary uses of existing infrastructure, or was concealment and secret movement the original purpose? Religious and occult connections to underground spaces appear throughout history and across cultures. Temples featured underground chambers. Mystery schools conducted initiations in subterranean settings, and secret societies met in hidden locations beneath cities. The symbolism of descent into darkness, transformation in hidden spaces, and emergence into light forms a recurring theme in esoteric traditions worldwide. Could these tunnel networks serve purposes beyond mundane utility? Were certain groups deliberately creating underground domains for reasons they never documented in official records? The question of who controlled access to these spaces becomes crucial. Odessa's catacombs became infamous during World War II when Soviet partisans used them to conduct guerrilla operations against occupying forces. How did partisans navigate such vast networks? Who maintained knowledge of the tunnel layouts when official maps remained incomplete? Similar situations occurred in other cities. Resistance fighters, criminals, and various underground organizations operated within these spaces, suggesting maintained knowledge passed through unofficial channels. Someone always knew the tunnels better than authorities acknowledged. Modern exploration of these tunnel systems continues revealing unexpected discoveries. Sealed chambers, unexplored passages, and previously unknown sections emerge regularly. In 2003, Paris police discovered a secret cinema hidden in the catacombs, complete with electrical wiring, seating, and a professionally equipped projection room. No one knows who built it or how they accomplished the installation without detection. Similar discoveries occur worldwide. Hidden chambers beneath temples, sealed passages beneath government buildings, and unexplained structures in supposedly well-documented tunnel systems. Each discovery reinforces the uncomfortable reality that we don't actually know what lies beneath our cities. The official narrative insists on prosaic explanations. Practical needs drove construction, available technology sufficed for the work, and historical records accurately describe events. But this narrative crumbles under scrutiny. The scale of work, technological sophistication, timing of projects, and physical evidence don't align with what we're told occurred. Something else happened, something involving capabilities we haven't acknowledged. Either previous civilizations possessed technologies we've lost or forgotten, or the timeline of human development contains gaps deliberately obscured. Look at what disappears from official history when empires fall or societies restructure. Libraries burn, records vanish, knowledge systems collapse, and technological capabilities evaporate. After Rome fell, Europe lost concrete technology for 1,000 years despite Romans using it extensively. Multiple civilizations developed sophisticated astronomical knowledge that later cultures forgot. Why assume tunnel construction technology couldn't similarly appear, disappear, and reappear across historical periods? Perhaps these underground networks represent inherited infrastructure from previous, more capable societies, later adapted and claimed by cultures that found rather than built them. The ventilation systems alone suggest technological sophistication beyond acknowledged capabilities. Derinkuyi's ventilation shafts maintain air circulation through 11 stories of underground spaces using only natural convection. Modern engineers acknowledge this requires precise understanding of thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, and architectural design. The shafts follow optimal paths. Chamber sizes create proper air pressure differentials, and the overall system functions without any mechanical assistance. This isn't primitive engineering stumbled upon by trial and error. This represents sophisticated scientific knowledge deliberately applied. Water management in these tunnel systems displays similar advancement. Underground wells, drainage systems, and moisture control mechanisms function perfectly, despite being carved from solid rock with supposedly primitive tools. The Paris catacombs remain largely dry, despite lying beneath the water table, suggesting hydrogeological engineering understanding. Edinburgh's vaults incorporated drainage features that still function centuries later. Odessa's catacombs avoid flooding despite extending beneath areas with high groundwater. Either ancient engineers possessed remarkable geological knowledge, or they inherited designs from predecessor civilizations that understood these principles. The precision of astronomical and geometric alignments in some tunnel systems adds another mysterious dimension. Certain passages align with solar or stellar events. Chambers incorporate mathematical proportions found in sacred architecture, and layouts reflect geometric principles suggesting intentional symbolic design. These aren't random excavations, but carefully planned spaces encoding knowledge in their physical structure. What information did builders preserve in stone and space? What understanding did they possess that we've lost? Modern attempts to replicate pre-electric tunnel construction methods consistently fail. Experimental archaeologists trying to excavate even small passages using period-appropriate tools and lighting discover immediate problems. Work proceeds impossibly slowly. Ventilation becomes critical within minutes. Lighting provides inadequate visibility, and structural stability proves difficult to maintain. Scale these problems to the size of actual historical tunnel networks, and the mathematics become absurd. Official explanations cannot account for what physically exists beneath our cities. The silence around these contradictions tells its own story. Academic institutions avoid discussing technological paradoxes in tunnel construction. Historians dismiss questions about ventilation and lighting as unimportant details. Engineers who point out impossibilities in official timelines find their concerns ignored. A systematic effort seems aimed at preventing serious investigation into the true origins of these underground networks. When questions threaten established narratives, those questions get buried as thoroughly as the tunnels themselves. Underground spaces possess unique properties beyond concealment. They provide stable temperatures, protection from weather and warfare, acoustic characteristics valuable for certain purposes, and isolation from electromagnetic interference. Ancient peoples understood these properties and utilized underground locations for temples, treasuries, and sacred sites. Modern military installations burrow deep underground for protection and secrecy. Perhaps the historical tunnel networks served similar sophisticated purposes that mundane mining or sewage explanations deliberately obscure. The pattern repeats globally. In China, vast underground complexes exist beneath cities like Beijing, supposedly constructed as bomb shelters during Cold War tensions. Yet the engineering quality and extent suggest earlier origins. In Japan, underground spaces beneath temples and castles display construction techniques predating official timelines. Across the Americas, pre-Columbian tunnel systems appear beneath archaeological sites. Their purposes unknown and construction methods unexplained. The phenomenon isn't limited to Europe or one historical period. Something fundamental about human civilization involves creating extensive underground networks using capabilities that don't match our understanding of historical technology. Consider what would need to change if we acknowledge these spaces as inherited infrastructure rather than recent construction. Our entire timeline of human technological development would require revision. The narrative of steady progress from primitive to advanced would collapse. Instead, we'd face evidence of cyclical rises and falls, advanced capabilities appearing in supposedly primitive periods, and knowledge systems vanishing from historical record. This possibility threatens foundational assumptions about history, progress, and human development. No wonder academic institutions resist investigation. The deeper we examine these underground networks, the more the accepted historical framework disintegrates. Consider the Constantinople cisterns, particularly the Basilica cistern constructed supposedly in the 6th century CE under Emperor Justinian. This underground cathedral of water extends nearly 10,000 square meters, supported by 336 marble columns arranged in 12 rows. Each column stands 9 meters tall, many clearly salvaged from earlier Roman structures, some bearing Medusa head carvings at their base. Official history describes Byzantine engineers designing this masterwork to store water for the Great Palace. Yet the execution reveals knowledge that shouldn't exist in that period. The acoustic properties, the precise column spacing ensuring structural integrity, the waterproofing techniques preventing seepage, and the ventilation maintaining air quality all demonstrate sophisticated understanding. Workers supposedly accomplish this while standing waist-deep in water, illuminated only by torches, moving massive marble columns into exact positions. The mathematics of such an operation, the logistics of underwater construction without diving equipment or artificial lighting, demand capabilities Byzantine civilization allegedly didn't possess. The same impossible pattern appears in medieval European construction. Beneath numerous cathedrals and monasteries lie extensive crypt systems and tunnel networks connecting religious buildings to secular structures. The crypts beneath Cologne Cathedral extend deep into the earth, featuring stone vaulting and architectural refinement, suggesting purposes beyond simple burial. These spaces supposedly emerged during centuries when Europe struggled with basic sanitation, when knowledge of concrete had vanished, when building techniques had regressed compared to Roman engineering. Yet here stand sophisticated underground chambers demonstrating preserved or rediscovered capabilities. Either Christian institutions maintained secret knowledge of advanced construction techniques, or they built upon and within far older existing infrastructure. Mining operations supposedly driving much of this tunnel construction present their own unsolvable mysteries. The Wieliczka salt mine in Poland, with over 200 miles of tunnels extending depths of 1,000 feet, allegedly began operations in the 13th century. Workers carved chambers, chapels, and even chandeliers entirely from rock salt, creating an underground city of crystalline beauty. They supposedly accomplished this using medieval technology and working in cramped spaces where a single spark could ignite explosive methane gas accumulations. The mine's ventilation system, crucial for preventing deadly gas buildups, functioned through natural convection and carefully designed shaft placement. How did medieval miners understand fluid dynamics and atmospheric pressure well enough to engineer such systems? The official explanation suggests trial and error over centuries. Yet the cost of error in such operations meant immediate death for everyone underground. Either medieval miners possessed theoretical knowledge far exceeding what we attribute to that era, or they followed existing tunnel systems and expanded upon infrastructure already present. The Cornwall tin mines in England demonstrate similar anomalies. Some shafts extend beneath the ocean floor, requiring sophisticated understanding of geology, structural engineering, and water management. Miners supposedly worked in these underwater chambers during the 17th and 18th centuries, preventing ocean seepage through techniques that modern engineers acknowledge as advanced. The mathematical calculations required to determine safe mining depths beneath the seafloor, accounting for water pressure, rock integrity, and tunnel stability, demand knowledge we don't associate with pre-industrial mining operations. Yet, there exist the tunnels, dry and stable, mined for centuries without catastrophic flooding. What knowledge guided these operations? In the Americas, Pre-Columbian tunnel systems present challenges to established archaeological chronologies. Beneath Teotihuacan in Mexico, tunnels extend beneath the Pyramid of the Sun and Temple of the Feathered Serpent, containing chambers that served religious or astronomical purposes. Archaeologists discovered these passages contained liquid mercury, scattered in significant quantities, purpose unknown. Mercury's presence suggests either technological application we don't understand, or symbolic usage indicating sophisticated metallurgical knowledge. The tunnels themselves, carved from bedrock with tools that shouldn't leave such precise surfaces, demonstrate capabilities that don't align with our understanding of Teotihuacan's technological level. Carbon dating places the city's occupation between 100 BCE and 750 CE. Yet the engineering sophistication suggests either much later construction or inheritance from earlier civilizations. The acoustic properties of many tunnel systems reveal another dimension of sophisticated understanding. Certain chambers amplify sound in specific frequency ranges. Others dampen noise completely, and some create unusual echo effects, suggesting intentional acoustic engineering. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, an underground temple complex dated to approximately 3000 BCE, demonstrates acoustic design that modern sound engineers recognize as intentional. Specific chambers resonate at frequencies affecting human consciousness, creating altered states during religious ceremonies. How did Neolithic peoples understand acoustic physics well enough to engineer such precise effects? Either they possessed theoretical knowledge we haven't credited them with, or they inherited and adapted spaces designed by predecessors with superior understanding. The preservation of these tunnel systems across millennia adds to the mystery. Underground spaces face constant threats: water infiltration, structural collapse, mineral deposit accumulation, and general degradation. Modern tunnels require continuous maintenance. Yet these ancient systems survive centuries or millennia with minimal intervention. The engineering principles ensuring their longevity demonstrate understanding of material science, geology, and structural dynamics that supposedly didn't exist during their construction periods. Either the builders accidentally achieved perfect design through luck, or they applied sophisticated knowledge deliberately. Military applications of tunnel systems throughout history reveal maintained knowledge of underground warfare. During World War I, opposing armies constructed vast tunnel networks beneath no man's land, placing massive explosive charges under enemy positions. Mining and countermining became crucial military operations, yet soldiers on all sides operated as if tunnel warfare was established doctrine, not newly invented strategy. Historical records show tunnel warfare dating to ancient sieges, with defenders and attackers both employing underground tactics. Someone always maintained institutional knowledge of subterranean operations, passed through military traditions across centuries. This suggests underground spaces held consistent strategic importance, implying their extent and capabilities were always greater than civilian populations knew. Secret societies and occult organizations consistently associate themselves with underground spaces. Masonic traditions reference underground chambers and lost vaults containing ancient knowledge. Various mystery schools conducted initiations in caves and constructed underground temples. The symbolism of descent, darkness, and emergence appears across mystical traditions worldwide, suggesting underground spaces held spiritual significance beyond practical utility. Perhaps these organizations preserved knowledge of the tunnel's true origins and purposes, passing information through ritual and symbol while official history recorded sanitized versions. Modern urban explorers who penetrate sealed sections of historical tunnel systems report discoveries that challenge official narratives. hidden chambers containing unexplained artifacts, passages extending beyond mapped boundaries, and architectural features inconsistent with supposed construction dates. Authorities typically seal these areas quickly after discovery, preventing independent investigation. When urban explorers share findings online, information often disappears or gets dismissed as hoaxes. The pattern suggests deliberate suppression of evidence, contradicting established historical timelines. The question remains: who built these underground networks, and what capabilities did they truly possess? The evidence points toward either vastly underestimated ancient technological sophistication or inherited infrastructure from civilizations we haven't acknowledged. The scale, precision, and engineering quality of these tunnel systems cannot result from the primitive methods official history describes. Something else occurred. Something involving knowledge we've lost, capabilities we don't understand, and purposes we haven't fully recognized. The tunnel builders, whoever they truly were, left us spaces that function perfectly despite supposedly impossible construction methods. They created networks that have survived centuries without maintenance, serving purposes beyond those officially acknowledged. They encoded knowledge in stone and space that we're only beginning to recognize. Whether they represented a forgotten advanced civilization, a secret technological tradition, or something else entirely, their work demonstrates capabilities that official history cannot explain. Walk through these underground spaces and feel the weight of unanswered questions. Run your hand along walls supposedly carved by candlelight and consider the impossibility. Stand in chambers extending hundreds of feet below ground and breathe air that shouldn't circulate. Observe engineering precision achieved without electric tools, computers, or modern measurement systems. Then ask yourself what else we've been told about history that doesn't withstand scrutiny. These aren't isolated anomalies or minor inconsistencies. These are massive physical structures that exist in plain sight, visited by millions, yet their true origin remains deliberately obscured. The tunnels speak of lost capabilities, hidden history, and knowledge systems removed from official record. They demonstrate that what we call progress might be rediscovery, that primitive and advanced are inadequate categories, and that human civilization's story is far more complex than linear narratives suggest. Beneath our cities lie spaces built by methods we cannot replicate, serving purposes we don't fully understand, constructed during periods when such work should have been impossible. The tunnels remain solid and undeniable, waiting for us to finally ask the right questions about who built them, how they accomplished it, and what else they're hiding beneath the earth we walk upon daily. Official history offers comfortable lies. The darkness beneath our feet holds uncomfortable truths.